Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Talk Show. I'm Carla Elizondo. Happy Monday. Happy brand new week. We are continuing our reading of Awakened Imagination by Neville Goddard. We're on chapter 3 today. We are starting, maybe I'll read halfway through and then read the other half tomorrow of chapter 3. Let's dive right in. Chapter 3, Highways of the Inner World. And the children struggled within her, and the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Duality is an inherent condition of life. Everything that exists is double. Man is a dual creature with contrary principles embedded in his nature. They war within him and present attitudes to life which are antagonistic. This conflict is the eternal enterprise, the war in heaven, the never-ending struggle of the younger or inner man of imagination to assert his supremacy over the elder or outer man of sense. The first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first. He is who he is. He it is who coming after me is preferred before me. The second man is the Lord from heaven. Those were a few scriptures. Man begins to awake to the imaginative life the moment he feels the presence of another being in himself. Man begins to awake to the imaginative life the moment he feels the presence of another being in himself. In your limbs lie nations twain, rival races from their birth. One the mastery shall gain, the younger o'er the elder reign. There are 2 distinct centers of thought or outlooks on the world possessed by every man. The Bible speaks of these 2 outlooks as natural and spiritual. The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Man's inner body is as real in the world of subjective experience as his outer physical body is real in the world of external realities. But the inner body expresses a more fundamental part of reality. We talk about this all the time. Inside Talk Show is an inside job. Inside talk, talking about what's going on the inside, the stuff we can't see, okay? So our inner body is as real in the world of subjective inner experience as is our outer physical body is real to the world of external realities, what we can see. But the inner body, our inner world, our inner body expresses a more fundamental part of reality. This existing inner body of a person must be consciously exercised and directed. So this inner body must be consciously exercised and directed. The inner world of thought and feeling of which the inner body is attuned has its real structure and exists in its own higher space. There are 2 kinds of movement, one that is according to the inner body and another that is according to the outer body, right? There's 2 types of movement, what we can't see and what we can see. When you say, I'm a changed person, you could be standing in the same place, witnessing something on the outside world. And you can say, oh my gosh, I will never be the same. I'm completely changed. And someone could look at you and be like, girl, you've been standing in the same spot the whole time. What do you mean everything's changed? On the inside, there's 2 types of movement. There are 2 kinds of movement. One that is according to the inner body and another that is according to the outer body. The movement which is according to the inner body is casual, but the outer movement is under compulsion. The inner movement determines the outer, which is joined to it. The inner movement determines the outer, which is joined to it, bringing into the outer a movement that is similar to the actions of the inner body. Inner movement is the force by which all events are brought to pass. Inner movement is the force by which all events are brought to pass. Outer movement is subject to the compulsion applied to it by the movement of the inner body. We don't do anything out here that you can see unless first it happens here. Whenever the action of the inner body matches the actions which the outer body must take to appease desire, that desire will be realized. So whenever the action of the inner body matches the action which the outer body must take to appease desire, that desire will be realized. Construct mentally, build in your mind, construct mentally a drama which implies that your desire is realized, and make it one which involves movement of self. Immobilize your outer physical self. Act precisely as though you were going to take a nap, and start the predetermined action in imagination. So Neville's referring back, he says this stuff all the time. This is how you really get into the spirit. You're like, Carla, I hear all you're saying, but how can I apply this to my life? This is how. So construct a dream in your mind, something you want to accomplish. Construct a mental drama, a video, a scene, a movie. Play it out like a music video in your mind, which implies that your desire is realized. So see yourself already getting your dream. Construct your dream, see it already happening. Make it one which involves movement of self, seeing yourself doing it. Then immobilize your physical body. Act as though you were just going to take a nap. And start the predetermined action in your imagination. A vivid representation of the action is the beginning of that action. So a vivid representation of the action is the beginning of that action. Then, as you are falling asleep, consciously imagine yourself into the scene. The length of the sleep is not important. A short nap is sufficient, but carrying the action into sleep thickens fancy into fact. Ooh. At first, your thoughts may be like rambling sheep that have no shepherd. Don't despair. Should your attention stray 70 times 7, bring it back 70 times 7 to its predetermined course until, for sheer exhaustion, it follows the appointed path. Basically, do it until it works, until you can really feel and see yourself there. Because you're going to get distracted. It's like meditation, just back to one. You're going to fly off, back to one. Your mind's going to wander, back to one. The inner journey must never be without direction. When you take to the inner road, it is to do what you did mentally before you started. You go for the prize you have already seen and accepted. In The Road to Xanadu, Professor John Livingston Lowes says, "But I have long had the feeling, which this study had matured to a conviction, that fancy and imagination are not two powers at all, but one. The valid distinction which exists between them lies not in the materials with which they operate, but in the degree of intensity of the operant power itself. Working at high tension, the imaginative energy assimilates and transmutes. Keyed low, the same energy aggregates and yokes together those images, which at its highest pitch, it merges indissolubly into one." That little paragraph right there from Professor John Livingston Lowes, that's thick. Let me read it again. "But I have long had the feeling, which this study had matured to a conviction, that fancy and imagination are not two powers at all, but one. The valid distinction which exists between them lies not in the materials with which they operate, but in the degree of intensity of the operant power itself. Working at high tension, the imaginative energy assimilates and transmutes. Keyed low, the same energy aggregates and yokes together those images, which at its highest pitch, it merges indissolubly into one." Ooh. That's just focus. When we focus, something happens quicker. It just, fancy assembles, imagination fuses. Ooh, fancy assembles, imagination fuses. So fancying, dreaming about something, it assembles it. It gets all the pieces together out of your cupboards of your kitchen. Yep. Okay, here's all the parts I need. Imagination bakes the cake. And then you just eat it and you enjoy it. Here is a practical application of this theory. A year ago, a blind girl living in the city of San Francisco found herself confronted with a transportation problem. A rerouting of buses forced her to make 3 transfers between her home and her office. This lengthened her trip from 15 minutes to 2 hours and 15 minutes. Woof. She thought seriously about this problem and came to the decision that a car was the solution. She knew that she could not drive a car, but felt that she could be driven in one. Putting this theory to the test, that whatever the actions of the inner self correspond to the actions which the outer physical self must take to appease desire, that desire will be realized. She said to herself, I will sit here and imagine that I am being driven to my office. Sitting in her living room, she began to imagine herself seated in a car. She felt the rhythm of the motor. She imagined that she smelled the odor of gasoline, felt the motion of the car, touched the sleeve of the driver, and felt that the driver was a man. She felt the car stop, and turning to her companion, she said, Thank you very much, sir. To which he replied, The pleasure is all mine. Then she stepped from the car and heard the door snap shut as she closed it. She told me that she centered her imagination on being in a car, and although blind, viewed the city from her imaginary ride. She did not think of the ride. She thought from the ride and all that it implied. This controlled and subjectively directed purposive? This controlled and subjectively directed purposive ride raised her imagination to its full potency. It's the feeling of it. She kept her purpose ever before her, knowing there was cohesion in purposive inner movement. In these mental journeys, an emotional continuity must be sustained. So in these mental journeys, an emotional continuity must be sustained, the emotion of fulfilled desire. So sustain it and if you lose it, if you get distracted, start over. I don't know if you know Dr. Joe Dispenza. He talks about his bad car accident, or he was riding a bicycle back in Palm Springs. This is what started his big old journey back, totally ruined his spinal cord, was going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. But since he had the medical background and he saw every vertebrae of his spine fusing back together and healing, and he said he sat there on his back for 2 weeks, or on his stomach, I don't remember. But he said he didn't stop until he could get through the whole process without getting distracted. Basically, there goes the story. You could look it up on YouTube. Like he pretty much healed his own body with his mind. Lots of wild things here, but this is what he's saying. You have to stay with your imaginative state. Okay, so it said she kept her purpose. Okay, this controlled and subjectively directed purposive ride raised her imagination to the full. She kept her purpose ever before her, knowing there was a cohesion in purposive inner movement. In these mental journeys, an emotional continuity must be sustained, the emotion of fulfilled desire. Expectancy and desire were so intensely joined that they passed at once from a mental state into a physical state. Right? The expectancy and desire were so intense. They were so intensely joined that it passed from at once a mental state to a physical act. Even just feeling it physiologically with our bodies, something that we're thinking about, like our butterflies in the stomach, our heartbeat races, we start smiling. It's like, oh my gosh, this is just from a thought. When we really get into it, let ourselves feel it. The inner self moves along the predetermined course best when the emotions collaborate. If you're not feeling it, it ain't going to happen. If your heart's not in it, remember, it's not going to be a result in the world. The inner self must be fired. The inner self must be fired, and it is best fired by the thought of great deeds and personal gain. Okay. Fired up, I think that's what he means. The inner self, like fueled, fired, get the thing, get the motor running. The inner self must be fired up, and it is best fired up by the thought of great deeds and personal gain. We must take pleasure in our actions. On 2 successive days, the blind girl took her imaginary ride, giving it all the joy and sensory vividness of reality. A few hours after her second imaginary ride, a friend told her of a story in the evening paper. It was a story of a man who was interested in the blind. The blind girl phoned him and stated her problem. The very next day, on his way home, he stopped in at a bar, and while there had the urge to tell the story of the blind girl to his friend, the proprietor. Okay, let me read that again. So the blind girl phoned him and stated her problem. The very next day, on his way home, he stopped in at a bar, and while there had the urge to tell the story of the blind girl to his friend and the proprietor. A total stranger, on hearing the story, volunteered to drive the blind girl home every day. The man who told the story then said, "If you will take her home, I will take her to work." This was over a year ago, and since that day, the blind girl has been driven to and from her office by these 2 gentlemen. Now, instead of spending 2 hours and 15 minutes on 3 buses, she is at her office in less than 15 minutes. And on that first ride to her office, she turned to her good Samaritan and said, "Thank you very much, sir." And he replied, "The pleasure is all mine." This stuff really happens. This clearly happened. I love Neville. He don't lie. These are real stories. Thus, the objects of her imagination were to her the realities of which the physical manifestation was only the witness. The determinative animating principle was the imaginative ride. Her triumph could be a surprise only to those who did not know of her inner ride. She mentally viewed the world from this imaginative ride with such a clearness of vision that every aspect of the city attained identity. These inner movements not only produced corresponding outer movements. This is the law which operates beneath all physical appearance. He who practices these exercises of bilocation will develop unusual powers of concentration and quiescence. I don't know that word. And will inevitably achieve waking consciousness on the inner and dimensionally larger world. Actualizing strongly, she fulfilled her desire for viewing the city from the feeling of her wish fulfilled. She matched the state desired and granted that to herself which sleeping men ask of God. I'm gonna look this word up. Okay, here we go. It might be a word that I would recognize if I heard it, but I have not seen this. It's a word. Let's hear it together.
Quiescent.
Oh, quiescent. Being at rest, still, quiet, inactive or motionless. Oh, like acquiescent, sitting back. Quiescent. Calm, at rest. So let's read that again. He who practices these exercises of bilocation, meaning you're one place, but then you're bilocating 2 places at once. You're really somewhere else in your mind and your imagination. So the person who participates in these bilocation exercises will develop unusual powers of concentration and quiescence and will inevitably achieve waking consciousness on the inner and dimensionally larger world. It's pretty much like being awake in a dream. Right? Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Just got to wake up. To realize your desire, an action must start in your imagination apart from the evidence of the senses. Neville repeats this all the time. We can't hear it enough. To realize your desire, to realize anything you want, actualize it, to have it come to pass, whatever dream you want, to realize your desire. An action must start in your imagination. Disregard no matter what's going on in the outside world, apart from the evidence of the senses, no matter what you see or hear, it doesn't matter. You got to disregard those. And the action has to start in your imagination first. To realize your desire, an action must start in your imagination, apart from the evidence of the senses, involving movement of self and implying fulfillment of your desire. Whenever it is the action which the outer self takes to appease desire, that desire will be realized. So whenever your outer actions start matching what's going up on here to help it, because you can't just sit on a lily pad and it's going to come to your front door. You have to take action in the physical world, but it has to match this congruency, alignment. Because, where did I draw that? I don't remember. But these have to be in alignment. Your thoughts have to match your feelings, and then it'll be result. But if your thoughts are over here and your heart's over here, and it's not matching up because you know something, I want to lose weight, but I really want that chocolate cake and I'm addicted to it and I can't resist it because I just can't resist it. What are you going to get out here? You're not going to get weight loss. You're going to get what's in here, what you're emotionally involved with and addicted to emotionally. Whatever addiction it is. You have to be congruent. So whenever the action which the outer self takes to appease desire, that desire will be realized. Right? And it could be in alignment with an addiction. I want to get blitzed. Ooh, yes, I do. I'm excited about that. And I'm looking forward to getting totally annihilated. So I will take the outer action of going to my local liquor store and buying a pint of vodka. That's all in alignment. Isn't that terrible? The movement of every visible object is caused not by things outside the body, but by things within. You hear that? The movement of every visible object is caused not by things outside the body, but by things within it, which operate from within, out, inside out, inside job. The journey is in yourself. You travel along the highways of the inner world. Without inner movement, it is impossible to bring forth anything. Inner action is introverted sensation. If you will construct mentally a drama which implies you have realized your objective, then close your eyes and drop your thoughts inward, centering your imagination all the while in the predetermined action and partake in that action. You will become a self-determined being. Inner action orders all things according to the nature of itself. Try it and see whether a desirable ideal, once formulated, is possible. For only by this process of experiment can you realize your potentialities. Why not? If you're listening to this, clearly it resonates, but if you ever question it, if you've ever had doubt, maybe you're in a place of kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You think it's possible. You know it's possible, maybe just not for you. You just don't get it. It's possible for other people. You see other people, you hear stories, but I can't get it together. Try this. So inner action orders all things according to the nature of itself. Try it and see whether a desirable ideal, once formulated, is possible. For only by this process of experiment can you realize your potentialities. You have the power. You can do what this girl did, this blind girl. Whatever it is, take the time today to sit there. You don't have to fall asleep and take a nap, but just immobilize your body, quiet, and play the tape in your head of something. Oh, I did it this morning. I saw myself, where I want to go, my next goal. I felt it. I smelt the smells. I visualized the talking, what it would sound like. Ooh, just really get into it and, open your eyes, but okay, carry on. It's like I did my work. And then I'm going to take the outer motions to continue, like all the things that will bring that to actual reality. But sitting there and getting stewing, marinating in that emotion and the feeling and the video in my mind is what he's talking about. And that's what that blind girl did too. So we have to realize our potentialities. It is thus that this creative principle is being realized. So the clue to purposive, these words. So the clue to purposeful living is to center your imagination in the action and feeling of fulfilled desire with such awareness, such sensitivity that you initiate the experience, movement upon the inner world. So the clue to this purposeful, focused living is to center your imagination in the action and feeling of fulfilled desire, which such awareness, such sensitiveness, that you initiate the experience and experience movement upon the inner world. Ideas only act if they are felt. OMG. Got that right, Neville. Ideas, do you see that? Ideas in our conscious thinking mind, ideas only act, which are on the outer results, that's what the R stands for, in the outer world. Ideas only act if they are felt in the heart. If we are not emotionally involved with this idea, meaning we put the idea into our heart, if we do not put the idea into our heart, it will not show up here. Whatever is in our heart, whatever idea we are emotionally involved with, good or bad, will show up here. That's why it's so important. Look, we're human. We have emotions. No one's perfect. I'm not saying don't ever get upset or mad or whatever. Just don't stay there. Don't dwell in it. The moment you feel yourself dysregulated, feeling squirmy, your stomach is churning, you're breathing shallow, when you feel yourself in a state that is not harmonious, you're like, I'm out of whack, there's disturbance in the force, no matter how small, stop and question it, reset it, explore it. Where did it come from? Why is it here? Why am I feeling this? How can I shift my perception? How can I change this? And that's our work. Because we can say, well, I just feel like shit and that's okay, and I'm not going to bypass it. I'm not going to change it. It is what it is. Okay, fine. If you can accept it, it is what it is. But if you're still, if you can let it go and you feel okay with it, fine. But bad moods, bad feelings, stress, anxiety aren't here to stay. If you're holding on to that, just like a good thing, neither are good things. So we're not supposed to be in a, oh my God, happy, elated state all the time, excited state, just calm and peace, serenity, enthusiastic, in theos, in spirit. So to be enthusiastic, but to be excited or depressed, those are two extremes. It's not good one or the other. So if you're not feeling like da-da-da-da-da all the time, that's fine. But you shouldn't be feeling Eeyore all the time either. Calm, centered, at peace. Unmoved, neutral in the sense of emotions, which is really just directed, purposeful thinking. Ideas only act if they are felt, if they awaken inner movement. Inner movement is conditioned by self-motivation. Outer movement by compulsion. Inner movement is conditioned by self-motivation. We're in control of the inner movement, which everything starts. Inner movement is conditioned by self-motivation. Outer movement by compulsion, by outer world. Wherever the sole of your foot shall tread, the same give I unto you. And remember, the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. Remember, the Lord is we have the power. We were created in the image of God. We are creators. as God is. We have the creative faculty that God has, but we're not God. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. We have that power. I read the whole chapter. This is probably really long. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Get that visualization. I have a really good video on what we call visioneering. If you want it, message me. I will send it to you. It is a private link. If you're interested, trying to get your visualization game on, trying to really get into this stuff, it would be my pleasure to send it to you. If you resonate with this stuff, you want, any questions answered, or you really want to start this journey, because this is entertaining, right? I watch videos, I listen all the time, and I did that for years, but it was just for entertainment. It wasn't really for transformation. But like I've mentioned before, I switched the past few years. It's been for transformation. I've dived into this. I get coached. I coach now. So if you want to take this to the next level and really change your life, please reach out. I would love to support you in that journey. All my information is in my bio, so click the link, and I look forward to speaking with you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.